Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Role play.
In this episode, World Creation, Part 2.
Yes.
The first episode was quite long, so we decided to break it up into 2 parts.
There's a lot that we want to talk about, folks.
You want to start looking at your government after that, and your internal politics. What kind of government? Once again, is it a matriarchal society? Is it a patriarchal society? In one of my main kingdoms, it's a matriarchal society that the crown falls to the eldest daughter, who then picks her king that's going to rule with her, and she rules the land and he rules the military. He runs the military, but she has overall say. It doesn't, when there's a child born, if there's a son, if the son gets married, then it will fall to his daughter. It won't fall to him. It falls to the eldest daughter. And if he never has one, then another relative along the lines who is female is where it falls into.
And that's a Sayador, right?
That's in the Sayador.
A Sayador. Yeah. So Parconia is different, though.
Parconia is actually more like a Roman
empire.
It's an empire that somebody takes control and they lead it, and they may pass it on to their child, or somebody else may stab them in the back, like Julius Caesar, Julius Caesar. And take over and become the new Caesar.
And then in the Wildlanders, in the Wildlander areas, it's might makes right. It's whoever is strongest.
Right.
You have to defeat somebody to get the position.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
and which could cause bad blood there, because if they have children, their children may look upon it frowningly, and you're kicking them out, or you're taking them out.
Yeah. All that, all the political things, religious things like that, can all add all these layers, to your world, and dozens and dozens of different pathways and adventures that you could follow. The more layers you have, the more complex it is, and the easier it is really to construct pathways and adventure.
And the more living your world starts to become.
Yeah, the more living it does become. Yes.
And people will start believing it and understanding it.
Yep.
Once you're in internal politics, then part of the next step of fleshing it out is start thinking about the weather, the climate, calendar.
Yep.
What's your calendar look like? Does it look like the Gregorian calendar? The Gregorian calendar. Does it look like a calendar previous to that,
is it based on the seasons?
Yeah, is it based upon the seasons?
Cycles of the moon, cycles of the sun, the planets. Is it a hot world, a cold world, a windy world, rainy all the time? All that stuff, climate, weather, that all plays a huge part in constructing a culture and a world.
Do they have no moon? They have one moon? They have 2 moons? Because that dictates tides and flows, and some little bit of weather too, and shadows and lycanthropes, if you have lycanthropes, because if you have no moon, lycanthropes are going to be different.
Yeah.
If you've got 2 moons, maybe the lycanthrope comes out on any full moon, and maybe it's extra strength on double full moon.
Well, then that, of course, is that leads into festivals and holidays.
Right.
Festival of the new moon, holiday of the new sun, that kind of thing. Yeah,
in Dane, we've got, so I have a holiday that's very similar to Christmas or Yule, and it's called Kingitus.
Yeah.
And Kingitus was a druid who would travel about, and in the cold season, if somebody welcomed him into the house, he would give them foods and treasures, and he would welcome them, and they would have a bountiful year because of what they did for him. For welcoming him into his house. And there'd be small gifts. So the culture believes that, on Kingitus, it's 12 days of celebration, and you give gifts, whether it be small gifts or large gifts. The best gift is one that you make yourself and give to somebody.
That's good.
And then there's, like Mola, Molafest, which is...
Molafest, yeah.
Mola is the goddess of spring, and Molafest is the celebration.
Yeah.
So you have the season celebrations.
Well, then that brings us into growing seasons, crops,
right?
Agriculture, like what kind of food they eat, what kind of crops do they grow, what kind of crops do they harvest? When do they harvest? Do they have harvest festivals? Do they have planting festivals? Do they have midsummer festivals? That sort of thing. Do they have festivals around animals? Do they have festivals around insects, like bees and honey and stuff like that?
Yeah, and they have festivals of romance and
that's cultural.
Yeah,
romance festival of the theater, music,
or birth.
Yeah, death.
Tournaments.
Yeah.
Do your kingdoms have tournaments?
Yeah.
Do the knights get together and joust and have a big party and find out who's the best knight of them all? In my world, I've got a name that's kind of based upon, instead of Scarborough Fair, it's Sharrowborough.
Oh, that's right.
Fair. And it's kind of a big festival, and it's based a little bit upon like a Renaissance festival of today, where you have all these people gathering and coming, and the knights wear their best armor and they joust to find out who's the best knight, and there's trading, and it's, I can't remember if it's like 2 weeks long, and everyone has a great time.
Yeah.
So that's also part of what you're getting in there, is your festivals and tournaments and what else.
It's all part of the culture of your world.
And then more in the fleshing out, you start getting into, what do the people look like?
Yeah.
One thing in books is they had red hair, they were fair skinned, they had blue eyes, they were tall, they were short, they were stocky. So you want to start thinking about that within your culture of your people. What do they look like?
Yeah.
How do they even dress?
Yeah. How do they dress? The clothes they wear. What they culturally, do they wear robes? They wear pants. They wear dresses. That kind of thing. And I give a shout out to people who like to think about exotic looking people or whatever. Typically, a lot of times in D&D, everybody seems to look like they're British knights. Blonde hair, blue eyes. They were tall and handsome. They rode a charger. Everybody looked like them. What about the people who, like in the desert campaigns, when they look more Arabic or Turkish or Andalusian or someone like that, or even like in the African campaigns when people are sort of darker, they look more like a culture of the South. They dress differently. They don't wear, heavy furs or something. They wear like elaborate robes, or, even in like a campaign that's sort of like East Asian-ish, do they wear like elaborate armor that's different, brightly colored clothes, dull colored clothes, silks, satins, leather, furs, wool, anything like that. That's all part of fleshing out how your people look, how they dress, what they eat, everything,
Yeah, at one point in Therein, I actually had pictures of common clothing for some of the people. Unfortunately, those pictures vanished, but oh well.
No,
I was using a program that was kind of simple, but it wasn't based. I had to use what was available, so it wasn't always what I really wanted. But
well, at least you put the effort into it.
Yeah. More into that is you start thinking about the currency and the languages.
Yeah.
Is it always just your gold, silver, copper pieces, or do you have names for them?
Yeah. Or, like sometimes people have like the names of coins, or like crowns or florins,
or dragon,
or a dragon, or something like that.
Cog.
A name for, is it a penny? Is it a dime? Is it something else?
A shilling.
Is it a piece? Gold piece, that kind of copper piece.
Kronig.
Yeah, a kronig or something. You can really have a lot of fun with inventing names of money, different types of denominations of coins and what's on them.
I actually have that in Therein, but I've never tossed that out there. We've just kept with the basic. The coins. The gold coin does have a name. The platinum piece has a name.
Sure.
And other parts of the realm have names for theirs as well, and they look differently.
And then the names of different things, that comes out of languages.
Right.
What do they speak? Do they speak, a common tongue? Do they speak an aristocratic tongue? Do they speak a trade language that's common amongst all the people? Do they speak like thieves can't?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
And once again, in the
secret
Sayador,
languages.
We don't have common tongue. We have, so if you're from the Sayador, you speak Sayadorian.
Right.
If you're from the Wildlands, you speak Wildlander. If you're from Parconia, you speak Parconian. If you're from Bajor, the island, you actually speak a combination of a Sayadorian and Wildlander. It's a mix of the two.
Yeah.
So you can kind of communicate. And then even in the Wildlanders, you can communicate, but there can be some loss of communication between the peoples.
Oh, there's different dialects according to tribes. You know, do you have tribal languages? Even though these 3 tribes inhabit the valley, it's always been difficult for them to communicate effectively because they each have a different dialect.
Yeah, they have slightly different words, and you may offend somebody by saying something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, much like Spanish and French and Italian all have some similar words, but are different in many ways.
And did these languages follow trade routes? Did they, did they originate in this city, and now the people along the coast all speak this language because that's how the trade routes went? You know, this area, because it's in a valley and it's been more isolated, is their language completely different, even though they may culturally be the same kind of people. Mm-hmm. I mean, culturally and racially, they may be the same kind of people, but maybe they're separated from a natural barrier, so they speak a completely different language than the people on the other side of the mountain.
Then you want to start getting into, from the currency, the trade value of metals. Is gold more valuable here than it is there? Is silver more valuable here than it is there?
Yeah.
Gems and jewelry, is it more valuable?
Mm-hmm.
Does 1 gold piece actually equal 20 gold pieces somewhere else?
Yeah.
Because, it's a much more valuable piece of metal, or maybe it's junk. Maybe it has no value because there's so much of it.
Some trade stuff, is really worth a lot. Steel may be worth, because you can make weapons or armor from it. Yeah. How about furs or spices?
Yeah.
Or precious oils, that sort of thing. Sometimes cloths. Well, you can also bring into stuff like alcohol, drugs. That kind of thing, and then of course you deal with alcohol culturally with like drinking and types of alcohol, and then drugs or drug addictions, that kind of thing. Is this the drug trade? Is that the fast way to make money around here rather than legitimate trade in like timber or furs or something? Sometimes it can mirror our own culture. Sometimes it can be completely different, a complete invention of that certain culture. Right. How complex it can get.
Next thing I like to look at is rumors, legends, and myths.
Yeah.
I have actually wives' tales within Sayador that one of them is if a raven shadow passes over you, then a message is to come forth. Maybe it's good or ill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you if somebody dies of a certain boil, that you need to bury them on their tummy and put rocks on their back. Or if you kill a bee in the house, then your house is going to burn down before the next year. Yeah,
these old wives' tales like that, or these old rumors, or these little common sayings. That's part of the culture. Do people say stuff like that? Do they spread? Is that the way they spread knowledge? Is that the way they spread stories? Is it orally? Yeah. Is it written? Is it by theater shows? Is it like a puppet show? Is that how they communicate, their culture to each other? That way, is that how learning is spread? Are the people literate? Are they illiterate?
Yeah.
Do they have a variety of languages? Do they have math? Do they have architecture?
Hey, did you hear that the trees will walk and move on their own?
Yeah. See, that's from Lord of the Rings. It's like, I hear that there's trees that move. That kind of stuff. Rumors, gossip.
Oh, there's a great woolly man who lives in the forest and the mountains, and he'll throw rocks at you or bang sticks on the tree and try and scare you away. Or there's, don't go near that place. There's dead that wander that place. And so you got rumors like that.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And then you start more in your politics again. You start looking into the secrets and the diplomatic things that are going on there.
Yeah.
You have people that are causing issues with secrets or diplomatic problems within the country.
Spying. Are there rumored to be spies afoot from our enemies or our rivals on the other side of the river? There's rumored to be spies here. There's rumored to be fifth column movement trying to undermine our culture, trying to bring down our king and that kind of thing. These kind of intrigues, political and
the
military.
Fourth Estate is going to rise against us.
Exactly, that sort of thing. I mean, all that can add, a tremendous amount of depth and mystery, to your world that you're creating.
Yeah, and then are you going to have treasure maps that are hidden? Did people bury treasure, or are there hidden treasures?
Yeah.
Now, typically we know that, they have these rumors of pirates always burying treasures. That's typically not true, but maybe in your world that is true.
Maybe it is true.
Maybe there's a sunken ship.
Yeah, rumors of sunken ships or pirate treasure on this island. Or, maybe people go around and sell fake treasure maps or fake maps of distant lands.
Psst, hey, yo.
Yeah.
Hey, I got something for you.
Sail to the west and see the unknown lands, that kind of thing. Look at this map. You can buy it. So, yeah, that adds, a lot of layers and adds a lot of adventure paths that you could follow.
Now, the next step in your process is planting the party. You want to start meeting with your players, whether you do a session 0 or whatever you want to do. If you don't do the session 0, but you want to communicate to your players what's going to happen. What is the culture that are they interested in playing? Here's what's available. Is this what you want to play? And what kind of people they are. Take a survey of what races and classes that everyone wants to play. Everyone, as a DM, I like to have a fairly balanced group. Mm-hmm. So somebody kind of needs to play the healer, and somebody needs to play the fighter, and somebody needs to, you don't always have to have a rogue, but is it advantageous to have a rogue? Well,
Sometimes.
If you got traps,
Yeah.
And there may be traps that people can't get through.
Well, then you want to talk about the racial makeup of your party. Do you want dwarves in there, elves, gnomes, halflings, humans, half ogres, half humans, half elves, half orcs, that kind of thing?
You're going to bring in tieflings and other races. Are they available?
Yeah.
Just because the book has them there doesn't mean the DM has them in their world.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, just because it's in the book doesn't mean you have tieflings in your world. It all depends on its cultural. Is your world a human world? Does it have a variety of races? Does it have a dwarven land? Does it have elves? Does it have orcs? Does it have halflings? Does it have
gnomes? What are the gnomes like?
Yeah, what are the gnomes like? Are there even gnomes? Are there anything like that?
Yeah.
This kind of a complex world that you can build with all the multiracial, areas or multiracial cultures. It can mirror our world on Earth quite a bit. The thing, or it can also be talking about like completely different kind of entities. Like, do we have intelligent dragons who live in a city? Do they trade with people? Do we have intelligent beasts? Do we have a culture that's entirely made up of aquatic animals like dolphins or whales or their equivalent in your world? Do we have a city that's made up of an underwater city made completely of octopi? And do people trade with them as they move about on land or something like that? The endless possibilities that you could come up with when you create a fantasy realm is just amazing, But the thing is when you do, I think people should follow a certain set of basic guidelines. Just kind of what we've been going over, culture, geography, politics, that sort of thing, because it'll keep you on track so you won't create something that just is so outlandish no one's ever going to believe it.
Yeah. Get together then with your party and roll up or create your characters. Have a good time.
Their backgrounds.
And their backgrounds.
Yeah.
I like to require my players to have a background. Now, not everybody's going to come up with an in-depth background. Some people are going to write you a novel, and it's going to have a lot of information there for you, and parts of it you may use, and some of it you may never use, and there may be nothing in there at all that you can use. But then again, that's kind of up to the players to come up with, and encourage your players to come up with a background. Mm-hmm. Encapsulate the history of what their background is.
Yeah.
Their family background. Who are their brothers, their sisters, their mother, their father, their cousins.
Clan relations, tribal relations, cultural relations. How do they come from a culture? How do they react? How do they act within that culture? That thing.
And then start thinking about having a map for the characters around their homes. On mine, I've got this big, huge map of the world, and I zoom in on it, and I can show the players, well, this is your clan, and these are where you're possibly from.
Yeah.
You got little settlements, you got larger settlements, you got forts, you got the main city.
Sure. Here's the little village where you live.
Do you move back and forth between a couple of them? Why do you move back and forth between a couple of them? One of our players, who's playing a witch, was actually asking me that. They were having writer's block, and I said, well, my parents were skalds and bards in the society. Where am I from? And I said, so your family probably moved around. They probably weren't from this one little village
Yeah.
where you started. Maybe that's your home. Maybe that's where you were born, and maybe that's where they consider their base when they want to relax, or during the winter when they're not traveling about, or maybe they got stuck here.
Mm-hmm.
But chances are you probably moved around to the different settlements, and there's probably more than one bard or skald within the clan.
Sure.
Because everyone's passing on the history. If they die, who's going to pass on the history? So you've always got multiple ones getting together, and they're sharing information, and they're gathering tales from here and there and everywhere. And so that's information that you want to pass on to your characters, and with the maps and everything.
Yeah, I mean, talking about writer's block is like, I just don't know what to say about my character. Well, you got to start. Culturally, what is your character? Racially, what is your character? What does your character look like? How were they raised? If they were short and ugly, were they bullied a lot? If they were beautiful and fair, were they adored by people? Do they always get away with anything they want to because they're pretty? Do they always get blamed for something because they kind of look kind of rough? Are they from the wrong side of the river? That kind of stuff. There's really no reason to have any kind of writer's block when it comes to character creation. Just start thinking about all the people you've seen in movies and books.
Or people you've met in your life.
Or people you've met in your life. You can draw it from your own life, from other people's lives, from your family's lives, and say to yourself, yeah, I remember my Uncle Jack. He always had a hard time. People always looked down on him. He had long hair. Cops were always busting him, thinking he was having drugs, thinking he was, doing this and that, thinking he was always up to no good. But he was the greatest guy I ever knew. That kind of thing. You can create a character like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, on that part of planning the party is what kind of info do you give them?
Yeah.
Do they have rumors? Do they have legends that they can take into the game and say, hey, look, I heard this rumor that there's a buried treasure over here, or, oh, I heard there's a band of orcs over here, based upon maybe where they're from.
Yeah.
Which kind of gives you a starting point of you as a DM of what you want to do. Now, I as a DM, I typically have a starting adventure, and then afterwards, the characters can take all that information and start throwing it into the pot and go from there.
Yeah. These orcs, their treasure, is it in the mountains? Is it in the forest? Is it in a set of ruins? Is it in an old tumble-down castle? Is it in a village nearby? That kind of thing.
Right.
That kind of information you work off of, you build from that, and then, once that first basic adventure that you usually make, that you usually come up with, then after that's completed, everybody's like, wow, this is really cool. Well, let's continue to flesh out our world with different rumors. And you always have this thing where you have like notice boards in villages.
Not always, but there's some.
But sometimes, there's like a notice board. It's like, help the old lady cut firewood, or I'm being bothered by a drogger, or there's a bunch of wild dogs digging up my garden. Can someone help?
Yeah.
Adventure paths.
Adventure paths. Ideas for the party to expand.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't shoehole your players into just one thing. Give them the option. Players love when you give them the options of doing something. And they can decide amongst themselves, do they want to go to A, they want to go to B, they want to go to C, they want to go to none of these areas, and then you have to think on the spot of what you're going to do.
Yep.
But be prepared, because if you start planning A and B and C, they may go to A, and then they may want to go to B later, and then they may want to go to Z, and then back to C.
Or to D, or to X, or who knows. You got to be prepared. So, folks, I think that one of the messages that Delaney and I want to talk about, is try to be creative.
Yeah.
Try to flesh stuff out. It's, use your creative abilities. And I I firmly believe, and people always say, oh, I can't do that. I can't draw. I can't do that. I say, look, everyone is creative in one way or another. Everybody has creative abilities. You just may not know it yet. Some people are great storytellers. Some people are great musicians. Some people draw. Some people write. Some people talk. Some people build. Some people create in different ways. Just use that to create your world. Be creative. Create something original. And
then the last step is really setting it all into motion.
Yeah.
The NPCs who the players might know, or who they're going to run into, friends and relatives and government officials that they might have. The random generators, like political generators, or physical or social events, be they scandals or treaties or alliances or deaths of VIPs, parties and festivals. Do they get invited to that? Weather, blizzards, hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, Actually, the party actually just had a volcano in mind. They've never had that. They felt the earth shaking.
Yeah, the earth's shaking, and all of a sudden the snow is covered with ash, and it's gray.
Dark. It's really
it's
dark.
and people don't know what's going on. They're frightened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would be very typical at that time. Diseases and things like that might be going on.
Diseases, plagues, medical treatments. How good do healers work? Famines, crops, crop failures, insurrections, guerrilla warfare. Gosh, the list is endless. And it could be mirrored from our world, or it could be completely created from your mind and your fantasy itself.
Or from literature that you've taken an idea of, whether it be The Witcher, Conan, Lord of the Rings, Narnia,
you name it.
Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe.
Yeah.
Wheel of Time.
Anything. I mean, people steal from other people. They really do when it comes to creativity. And as long as you're not trying to make money off it at someone else's expense and through someone else's labor, and they don't like it, feel free to run with it. Really.
Yeah. So we're going to end this episode of World Creation of Wizards of the Tower roleplay, and we hope all of your adventures are epic.
And keep on rolling, folks. Thanks for your attention.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and spreading the word.